So it's about that time of year again where we go through every isekai or fantasy from the upcoming season. But given all the delays and the significant decrease in new upcoming anime, there's very few to even talk about. Basically, out of the ones that I've been looking at, this season is split into a few very distinct categories. There's the sequels, the ecchi, and the ones that aren't even fantasy or isekai but decided to include anyway since I need a couple extra anime to talk about. I mean, really the only isekai this season are Re:Zero and Sword Art Online. So if you're here to see if there's any other worthwhile new isekai for this season, well, unfortunately there's not. But there could still be something else that may catch your attention. So let's start with the anime that I'm sure you're all already aware are coming out. First, we have the highly anticipated second season of Re:Zero. This one continuing things right after the events of season 1, which if you haven't seen the director's cut of, then I highly recommend you do so beforehand. There's a scene at the end of episode 13 that ties season 2 and season 1 together very nicely. So if anything, just make sure you watch that before jumping into the next season. Also, be sure to sub if you're interested in seeing what the anime has been skipping from the novels. I'll probably be doing these videos on a weekly basis just like how I did with Tower of God. Next we have Sword Art Online, which is a close second for the anime that I'm most excited for this season. Normally I would say that I was more hyped for SNAFU Season 3, but after seeing all the previews I have a weird feeling that that's going to be super depressing. It's definitely shaping up to be emotional. Anyway, SAO is finally bringing the Alicization arc to a close with the last half covering the end of the War of Underworld. I know Sword Art Online generally has a bad reputation, but I honestly can't recommend this season enough. Its strong points are definitely its well-animated action scenes, but the story has also been put together fairly well, especially since Kirito has been sidelined for the past 13 episodes now. So I highly recommend giving this one a watch if you're a fan of classic fantasy-based action. And just in case you need a bit more reasoning as to why, then I'll leave a link to a video in the description that covers why I think you should be watching it. As for the other sequels, we also have Fire Force and No Gun's Life. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say about what to expect from either of them. So instead I'll just leave links to their previews down below so that you can go ahead and check them out for yourself. Now, as for the new anime series this season, out of all the fantasy ones coming out, only one of them isn't an ecchi harem. And that's the Misfit of Demon King Academy. This is more of your standard action fantasy. It revolves around the reincarnation of a super powerful demon lord who has to go through a demon academy that determines if you're suitable to become the next demon lord. The thing is, no one recognizes him as his all-powerful former self. They don't even find him worthy to become a demon lord. So it's basically this super strong demon trying to reclaim his position as the demon king. Now, the other three fantasy are pretty much borderline hentai, each of which cover their own little unique aspects of the genre. You've got the action harem with the strong adventurer that every girl wants to be with, the monster girl doctor harem that is pretty much Monster Musume except in a fantasy setting. Then there's the harem that actually tries to have a plot by making the fate of the world quite literally depend on the power of ecchi. So whatever your cup of tea is, there's definitely plenty to choose from. Now, the last few anime on our list aren't entirely centered around fantasy, but they do seem somewhat tangential or at least worth mentioning. First, we have a couple post-apocalyptic originals. Deca-Dence by Studio Nut and Gibiate by Studio Launchbox. Deca-Dence follows a premise that's actually very similar to RWBY. In order to avoid the threat of these monster-like creatures known as Gadolls, humanity has been driven into these fortress-like communities known as Deca-Dence. Residents of the Deca-Dence are divided into two groups: Gears, who are warriors chosen to fight the Gadoll, and Tankers, who are the ones that can't. The story centers around a tanker girl who has dreams to one day become a Gear. It's a dream that soon becomes challenged as she joins an older tanker who has long since given up on that same fantasy. It presents this clash of ideals between this optimistic girl and this guy who has already accepted his place in society. On the other hand, Gibiate is more of a gritty tale of survival. After a virus had infected and changed humans into a multitude of different monsters, a ninja and samurai from the Edo period are transported to the current era to help a doctor find a cure. Now, as interesting as that does sound, I can't personally say that it's a story that I'll be too invested in. I'll probably just end up waiting for the early reviews on this one. Finally, we have what's probably going to be the most popular anime this season. I mean, everyone does love a good tournament arc, so I think God of High School will definitely start to pick up traction once everyone starts talking about it, especially with Tower of God doing so well last season. Now, when I last talked about God of High School, I apparently made the mistake of referring to it as a simple story. So I've now been informed several times that it becomes a lot more complex than just a massive fighting tournament between a bunch of high school students. But more than anything, there's going to be plenty of well-animated action and fighting, with what I'm hoping turns into a well-adapted story. So I'd definitely give this one a watch if that's what you're looking for. And if you want to get a sneak peek of what to expect, then you can watch the first 5 minutes of episode 1 over at Crunchyroll's channel. Anyway, that's pretty much all the isekai or fantasy anime worth mentioning this season. Yeah, I know there wasn't really much of either, but I think what this season lacks in quantity will definitely make up for in quality, especially with regards to the returning series. But if any of the new ones did catch your eye, then be sure to let me know which ones you'll be watching in the comments below. Now, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao!